fans. Peter Borkowski here on the Cougar Sports Network, bringing you this edition of Coaches Weekly. And once again, I'm joined by head coach of the CUC men's volleyball team, Coach Manos. Welcome back to the show, Coach. Excited to talk to you today.
As always, all right?
Yeah, and let's start with this past Saturday. You guys were at North Park University for a try there. You picked up a win against the host, North Park, but then picked up a loss against UC Santa Cruz in the second game. But the story of the day was easily Van Gato. 21 digs in that North Park game that secured the school record for single game digs. And I think Gato, being one of the sophomores on the team, he's one of those players that you've actually had an opportunity to see grow from last year. As a freshman, he didn't get as many sets played, didn't get as much playing time, but now that he is kind of getting those regular, minutes per se, those regular sets in year two as a sophomore, it seems that he's fully blossomed into that libero defensive stopper, whatever you need him to be, and that really showed Saturday with his record-setting day.
Yeah, Van's been really flexible with us since day one. So as a freshman, we wanted him to hit a little bit more just in terms of the team dynamic. This year focused more on his backcourt play and his defense, since that's his specialty, right, or his best attribute as a player. Saturday, he just really wanted it, right? He was very aggressive as far as his defensive mindset goes, not hesitant at all as far as taking balls within the seam or just away from other guys so that they can transition and do their job effectively. So really happy for him to get that achievement. And in that gym, too, it was difficult just because of the ceiling height. It did restrict a lot of our first contact as far as control or consistency. So regardless of everything there, he did a really good job of just reading hitters, being adjustable, and just being super aggressive with his defensive mentality.
And then fast forwarding to last night, you guys unfortunately dropped one at Trinity Christian College, and that kind of concludes the non-con portion of your schedule. You will have one more in a couple games against UW Stevens Point, but now that we're kind of through that non-con schedule, you guys have played 13 or so games. Just what are your main takeaways from that portion of the schedule as you get set to really hit the road in terms of conference play coming up?
Especially having two reverse sweep wins now, right? We know that we can battle and be consistent for 3 consecutive sets. It's just making sure that we're starting that way and being consistent with our efforts.
And coming up on Saturday, that is when the bulk of conference play. Lakeland University comes to Geisman, and you guys are coming back to Geisman for the first time in basically 2.5 weeks. That last home game was on February 6th against Rockford, which was the conference opener. And I'm sure for you and your team, that must be a relief to be able to finally come home, get into familiar territory, a home crowd in Geisman, as compared to all the road games you guys have been playing recently.
Yes, just having a full block of time now where we can get after it in practice, evaluate the other teams, and make sure we're putting ourselves in the best position to win. And like you mentioned, being at home is always a plus for us. Just between the fan base, the routine, being used to the gym and the space, we've done really well here at home for the last 2 seasons. So we just want to make sure that when we get to Saturday, we're repping it on our home court here.
And in terms of conference play starting, I always like to ask coaches, does anything kind of change when conference play really hits? Do you guys change the procedure a little, the mentality, whatever it is? Is it, business as usual from non-con? Because, at the end of the day, it's those conference games that really matter come playoff time. So just how does you and your team kind of approach these conference games differently or the same as you would approach a non-conference game?
Our practice dynamic is going to shift towards the X's and O's, right? So early in this week, we'll be able to focus on our side of the net. But as we get closer each game, especially because we have about 1 to 2 practices before each match, our coaching staff is able to do a little bit more on the back end as far as analytics, research, and scouting. And we make sure then in our practice routines that we're really emphasizing the areas that we can pick on the other team or the strengths that they have that we need to defend. So our practices are a lot more focused. They're a lot more specific. And for us, if we can bring that game plan in and play with urgency, right, that's what will allow us to be successful in this new school train of thought. We want to be fast, we want to be smart, we want to be agile, but we want to make sure that we're maniacal when we play our conference teams especially.
Definitely. Well, CUC, they start that bulk of conference play this Saturday right here in Geisman, Lakeland University, visiting the Cougars at 3 p.m. Coverage can be found at our website, cucougars.com, and the live stream can be found at our YouTube page, CUC Sports. Coach Manos, thanks again for joining me today. Good luck in your next couple games. I look forward to talking to you again next week. But until then, this is Peter Borkowski signing off of the Cougar Sports Network and wanting to say, as always, go Cougars.
Welcome inside Geisman Gymnasium as we get set for tonight's Northern Athletic Collegiate Conference men's volleyball matchup between your Concordia University Chicago Cougars and the visiting Eagles of Benedictine University. Peter Borkowski here with you on the Cougar Sports Network, joined by Troy Prattley. And Troy, I think we're in for a bit of a thriller tonight. These are two teams who have a lot of shared history throughout the last couple seasons. I'm sure we'll get into all of it as the night goes on. A playoff matchup last year that went in favor of the eventual NAC champion Eagles. The Eagles also are coached by Ron Katarzinski, the former CUC head coach, before current head coach Greg Manos took over. But before we get into all of that, let's look over these two teams, starting with your Concordia University Chicago Cougars. They come into tonight 6-8, 1-1 in conference play, and they picked up that one conference win in thrilling fashion this past Saturday, a 3-2 reverse sweep of the Lakeland Muskies. Troy, you were on the call for that game, and the reverse sweep seems to be becoming a habit for the Cougars team, and I think it just goes to show how much fight this squad really has.
Yeah, the reverse sweep, not something the Cougars were surprised by. They accomplished that earlier in the season against Fontbonne University here in Geisman Memorial Gymnasium on January 27th, and I asked Coach Manos about that after the game, and he simply described that his team just didn't stop fighting, and didn't matter what position they were in. It didn't matter whether or not they were down in the first set, lost the second set by a pretty substantial margin, but then came back and won a close third set and eventually pulled away in set 4 and 5, and that's what was able to complete the reverse sweep. We saw big days from Van Gato and J.R. Stella, so you know, their Cougars are going to need them to be big tonight as well to pull off this win against the Eagles.
Well, let's talk about the Eagles a little bit. I alluded to it, but they are the reigning NAC men's volleyball champion back from last season. They come in today 6-8, 1-1. They picked, 7-6, 2-0 in conference play, I meant to say. They recently picked up their last conference win on the 24th, a 3-0 sweep of St. Norbert. But Troy, the real main thing to look at when you look at this Eagles schedule, they are playing a lot of really good teams. They've played 4 of the top 10 teams in the nation. They've played the 20th team in the nation, and while they didn't win any of those games, it just goes to show how much faith Coach Katarzinski has in this reigning championship team, that they're willing to go up against those very, very tough squads.
Yeah, you mentioned it, and it's kind of hard to know sometimes how good a team actually is when that's their schedule. They've only lost one game that hasn't been played against a top 25 team, and so, you know, when you're winning those games against, you know, inferior opponents and you're losing against elite opponents, that means you're somewhere in the middle, right? You're going to beat the teams you're supposed to beat and lose to the teams you're supposed to lose to. And so we will see tonight if the Cougars are one of those teams that the Eagles are supposed to beat, or the Eagles are favored in this matchup. But, you know, we'll see it tonight here, Peter.
Well, all-time CUC is 1-5 against the Eagles. That win came last season in the regular season on March 29th, a 3-1 win over the Eagles right here in Geisman Gymnasium. That was the Cougars' first ever win over the Eagles. The Eagles did get their revenge in last year's NAC semifinal games with a 3-0 sweep of the Cougars. That got them to the championship game, which, of course, they eventually won. But, Troy, we're getting set for national anthems right here. Really quick, let's get your bullet point. What is the key to the Cougars to take down this reigning championship team? They were picked to win the conference again this year. What's your main key to the game for CUC?
My key to the game is at the service line, and that was something that the Cougars struggled with mightily in the match against Lakeland on Saturday. It felt like there were 3 or 4 times where the Cougars had consecutive service errors, and that was something that, you know, we had anticipated the Cougars being strong in that category. Well, if you look on the side of the Eagles, they have Chase Olson, a player who's 3rd in the conference in service aces. So that's going to be a matchup tonight from the service line. Can the Cougars control their errors, and can the Eagles control the service line and continue those aces?
Well, we get ready for the national anthem, and then we'll have starting lineups for you right here on the Cougar Sports Network. We'll be back in just a second.
Hello, I'm Dr. Russell Dawn, President of Concordia University Chicago. Thank you for tuning in to today's Cougar Athletics broadcast. We take great pride in the strength of both our athletic and academic programs, which are rooted in our steadfast commitment to Jesus Christ. Dedicated to the liberal arts as a foundation of a high-quality college degree, we believe education should form individuals for service to their neighbors. This makes Concordia Chicago an exciting and fulfilling place to study, work, learn, and grow. Learn more today by visiting cuchicago.edu. Thank you, and go Cougars!
National anthem has been played. The starting lineups have been read. Let's go through it one more time for everybody watching at home. First, for the Eagles of Benedictine University, their two starting liberos are number 1, Jordan Cardenas, and number 2, Noah Chantalengsi. After that, it is number 3, Spencer Veningen, number 10, Cooper Armstrong, number 16, Chase Olson, number 17, Owen O'Toole, number 23, Brennan Almorales, and number 25, Anthony Doobie. Assistant coaches for the Eagles are Johnny Winkler, Tori Vanderler, Matt Warner, Colby Campbell, and Ronnie Olchek. And the head coach of the Eagles is Ron Katarzinski in his second season. As for your Concordia University Chicago Cougars, the starting libero is number 15, Van Gato, number 5, Ayaz Arif, number 7, David Vales, number 10, Marcin Hoffman, number 11, Eli Mosher, number 17, J.R. Stella, and number 18, Leon Gazowski. Assistant coaches for the Cougars are Peter Dabrowski, Danny Coates, Tyler Hollebeck, and Trent Weber. And the head coach of the Cougars in his second season at the helm is Greg Manos. Interesting note, a lot of former CUC players on both of these training staffs, as on the Benedictine squad, Colby Campbell, the school's all-time leader in blocks. One of their assistant coaches, Ron Katarzinski, I already mentioned, was the Cougars head coach before current coach Greg Manos. Meanwhile, the Cougars, they're assisted by Tyler Hollebeck and Trent Weber, both alumni of the Concordia University of Chicago. Cougars, they're going to start attacking left to right on your screen. Benedictine, they're going right to left. Cougars wearing their all-white uniforms with maroon and yellow stripes down the middle, while Benny wearing their mostly dark uniforms. As we are underway here in Geisman, first attempt of the day goes out, and they're going to say David Vales got a piece of it, so Benny strikes first here. Back to serve is number 23, Brandon Almirales, sophomore out of Downers Grove, Illinois, as Van Gato receives the serve. Eli Mosher goes for Marcin Hoffman, and a good dig there. The ball goes out of bounds, however, and the Cougars, they knot things up at 1 apiece.
And for the Cougars, number 18, the freshman Leon Gazowski. He played just a few minutes in that game on Saturday, but quality minutes did Gazowski play, and so tonight he earns a start, and so we'll see how that develops. A player that has a lot of upside. And a
miscommunication on Benny's part leads to a service ace for CUC, but from my understanding, Gazowski was a little bit of a later addition to the CUC squad, so Coach Mano is trying to get the freshman really oriented in the team as he is starting to find himself in more and more starts, as a big block there from CUC goes out of bounds off the attempt from number 25, Anthony Doby, as he'll check out, and in comes number 5, Max Barbo, as the sophomore gets set to serve. And Troy, we're talking about a pregame. I mentioned the Eagles' mostly dark uniforms. I kind of want to get your opinion on the Benedictine drip, as it looks like they have 2 eagle heads on the side of their pants, a B on the back of them. Just a lot going on in these jerseys.
They are definitely busy, but you know what? I respect that they are different and that they catch the eye, right? And maybe that's intentional, where they want to have it be a talking point on the broadcast, or maybe they are trying to distract the opposing team. Whatever it is, Peter, they are unique.
Well, on another note, you see the name staple on the bottom of their jerseys. Jonathan Shear will be joining the broadcast later as our sideline reporter, and I believe he'll have more information on just what that name on the bottom of the jersey represents. As meanwhile, in the game, Leon Gazowski sends one out of play, so Benny starting to pull away here early in set 1 now, 5-2, as Barbo back to serve again. Just over the net, Van Gato's right there. Here comes J.R. Stella. That block goes out, so Cougars get a point back within 2.
And that was something we saw in the matchup against Lakeland on Saturday, was slow starts in almost all of those sets for the Cougars. The Muskies picked up the first point in 4 out of those 5 sets, and a lot of those, 2 of the 3-set victories for the Cougars came from behind within the last 5 or 6 points, and so the Cougars were used to playing from behind, but tonight they are probably going to need a little bit hotter of a start to stay with the Eagles throughout the evening.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to talk to Coach Manos this week during our Coaches Weekly interviews. That'll be coming up this Thursday, but one of the things I'm interested to pick his mind about is, like you said, Troy, how do the Cougars get hotter starts? Because they have 3 reverse sweeps so far on the year, and while that's good to see from your team, it's not a situation coaches usually want to find themselves in. Dow 0-2 Meanwhile, the Cougars, they're down 7-3 in this first set, as they are having some trouble keeping the ball in play on their attempts.
Yeah, and coming from behind, he apologized to us last week for scaring everybody in the crowd and for keeping them here so long. But yeah, there's no doubt about that. It's definitely not a situation that you want to be in, but a win nonetheless. A win is a win.
And that's something else to note is, the length of those matches. I know he was kind of saying that jokingly in regards to the crowd, but this is a small Cougars roster. I mean, right now they just have 2 players in Sean Beckman and Van Gato on the bench who are currently in their jerseys. They also have Tiki Johnson and Deontay Garcia with their warm-up polos still in, so I believe they'll be available. But, this is a Cougars team who they don't want to find themselves in lengthy matches because that's just going to wear them out, as the Cougars commit a violation, which means Benny now doubling them up 8-4. Spencer Vanagan started the game, gets set for his serve. A high toss-up, skims the top of the net, but there's Hoffman to play it. Now Vales goes for his attempt off the top of the hands as the Eagles send it back. A good block there. Van Gato, nice dolphin dive to get there. Vales able to get a piece of the hand, and the ball goes out. So CUC back within 3.
Really nice effort there from 15, Van Gato, and that was a player that I had talked to Coach Manos about at the end of the Lakeland game, a player that it was not the libero to start the year. It was Garcia that was the libero, and Gato was kind of thrust into that role and performed spectacularly on Saturday, and a good showing right there on that last sequence.
Yeah, Gato and Garcia were it was up in the air who I think the starting libero would be for the majority of the season. Blake Rosen, who was the starting libero for the last couple of years, transferred at the semester break. And so you had these 2 sophomores, both of which have played libero in the past, ready to take up that role as a service ace here for the Cougars. Gets them back within 1 now. But like you said, Garcia started, Gato got his chance, and Gato has absolutely been thriving in it. Broke the school record for most digs in a single game with 21, and so far on the year, he's at 107 digs coming into tonight's game. Good block up front as Benedictine has to recover from it. A freebie is sent over. Mosher pokes it up, and Stella goes to Hoffman. A floater there. Coming up was Van Ingen. And now a strong attempt there. Cougars get some hands on it. Mosher for Stella again. Big block up front. Combined effort of Cooper Armstrong and Owen O'Toole. That's a 6'5" and 6'7" player right at the front of the net as Benny ends their mini slide and retake a 2-point lead.
And Benedictine's bench there is very animated. It's a fun squad to watch. If you're paying attention on the broadcast here, they're going to do the row in the boat now with a gentleman swimming alongside the rowboat.
So somebody's got to help him out.
Yeah, where's the
get him back in the
life
boat.
vest? Seriously.
Well, they don't seem to be hurting because of it. The service ace there gives them a 3-point lead as Vales sends an attack right into the hands of O'Toole and Al Morales, and that makes it an 11-7 lead. Strong rivalry between these 2 schools, separated by no more than a half-hour drive depending on traffic. And again, between the coaching situation with Ron Katarzinski now on the Benny side, the playoff loss the Cougars suffered last year, a lot of high emotions between these 2 squads as CUC trying to beat them in the regular season for a 2nd season in a row. As David Vales' serve is over, a long one. As Dobie, his attack is curved, and Mosher wins the 50-50 ball, going up for it, and the Cougars pull back within 1.
And you mentioned those emotions that comes with the rivalry, and there's only a couple players on this team that, and coaching staff now for the Cougars, that would have played for Coach Ron Katarzinski, but you bet that those freshmen and sophomores that didn't play for him know everything that went into that situation, and those upperclassmen have definitely talked to these younger guys about, hey, this one means a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Katarzinski was the head coach at the start of the school year last year, and then exited before the first semester ended. And then, of course, Greg Manos came in and set all kind of program records. Speaking of, Coach Manos, with the win tonight, would become the winningest coach in CUC men's volleyball history. But he's got a tall task ahead of him, as a perfectly placed hit there makes it 13-9 in favor of the visiting Eagles.
Cougars back line unable to get the hands all the way up there, and couldn't tell if it was a full whiff or if he had kind of pulled his hands down thinking it might have gone out of bounds. But regardless, it's an Eagle point, their 13th of the night.
And an errant attack on Mosher's part as he pushed that one right out of bounds. That makes it 14-9. As back to serve is O'Toole, the sophomore, all the way from Henderson, Nevada. Ends up a serve. Hoffman, good receive, and Stella from the mid-row goes nowhere. Benny, good defense, and Van Gato takes one off the chin. Can the Cougars keep it alive? Gato sends over the freebie. Gato took an absolute shot, stays in the play, but no Cougars going to get in front of that one from Chase Olson. And that is going to force our first timeout of the first set. Coach Manos, his team is reeling a little bit right now. The Eagles are on a 4-0 scoring run. They take a 15-9 lead into the timeout, and we're going to take a break here as well. And we'll be back in just a second on the Cougars Sports Network.
Thanks for tuning in to today's game. For more information on the men's volleyball program, tune into CUCougars.com. We hope to see you at our next game.
Back here on the Cougar Sports Network, CUC on the opposite end of a 4-0 scoring run by the Eagles. That makes it 15-9 in favor of the visiting road team. And Troy, I think the main issue we've seen from CUC, at least on the scoreboard, is they haven't had any major runs yet themselves. They've either been playing good back and forth volleyball, maybe they steal a couple points here, but it's either that or it's a Benny run, and that's why Benedictine's got a 15-9 run. CUC, they're going to need to find that large scoring run to make up that 6-point difference.
And I've got two reasons for that here in the early going. The first is the attack errors. Benedictine only has 1 to the Cougars' 8. And then on the other side, Benedictine's put up 4 blocks to the Cougars' 1. So those two areas with a large discrepancy here, and that gives the Eagles a 6-point lead.
Good block there by Mosher. Adobe going for the slam dunk, and he won't get it, but getting the point in the end was Al Morales. As back to serve is O'Toole. Serving a lot as of late, as the Benny run is now extended to 5-0. His serve will end there, though. His serving streak will end there, I should say. A service error as he checks out in favor of libero number 1, Jordan Cardenas, as Ayaz Arif, one of the many underclassmen on this Cougars team. David Vales, the only senior, the only upperclassman on the team to start the year. The team recently added Sean Beckman, who CUC men's basketball fans might recognize. He recently joined the roster after their season ended in the NAC tournament. Beckman is a junior in the transfer portal.
That's right. The basketball team ended their season a week from today up at St. Norbert College. And Beckman joined the squad shortly after that. We didn't see him in that Lakeland match, but we'll see if we see him in the later parts of tonight's match. You just never know, how long it takes for a player to adjust coming into a brand new team.
And, from what I've heard at least, Beckman is not an experienced volleyball player in any sense, but he is 6'8". That makes him the tallest player on the roster, and sometimes you just cannot beat height when it comes to games like volleyball. But Benny, they have the height and they have the talent. That's why they're up 18-11 on CUC right now. Al Morales back to serve. Benny looks to continue a dominant run as of late. Hoffman's dig goes back to the Benny side. There's Doby, and a dig from Stella goes out, and that's going to quickly force another timeout from Coach Manos as his team now finds themselves in a 19-11 hole. And Troy Cougars down by 8. They got a tall task ahead of them. You mentioned the the attack errors, which now sit at 9-8 in favor of Benny. They have the least amount. Cougars also hitting in the negatives, negative .222, while Benny hitting at .444. What are some of the positives, though, you've seen from the Cougars that they can kind of build on? They need a big run here at the end of the set. What are they maybe doing well, even though there might not be a lot of it right now, that they could possibly build on and attempt a comeback?
Well, it was something that I talked about in the pregame, and that was service errors. And so far they don't have any of those. And so only 11 points, but no service errors. And that was such a big part of Saturday's win. And it was for both teams, really. 3
service aces as well to boot. So Cougars cleaning it up on the service line. That is something Coach Manos really stressed preseason when I would have conversations with him, is how important the service line is, especially now that we're in conference play. So the teams, they break up the timeouts. Benny, they're 6 points away from ending what is shaping up to be a dominant set 1 win, while Cougars, they got a long way to go. See what they could do here at the end of the set. Benny on a 3-0 scoring run right now as Almirales, a soft serve. Hoffman able to get in front of it. Here comes Stella, blocked up front and almost goes out. Doby, great play to keep it in. Vales, dig on the other side. Here comes Stella, hard hit, he finds the court. Right past the outstretched arms of Cardenas, and that makes it 19-12 now. Still in favor of Benny, but CUC gets control of the service line back. Eli Mosher. Ball is up and ball is over. There's Doby. And they go to Armstrong. Armstrong's attempt goes nowhere. Gato goes for Stella. Blocked and out. Stella saying to hit one of their heads, which I believe it did. So Benny unable to get some hands on it. And because of it, CUC a couple points out of the timeout, back within 6.
Yeah, well, when it hits your head, Peter, you don't really have a ton of control on where it goes, and that's why we saw it shoot all the way back towards the back line there.
See, these are not soccer players we're dealing with, as Doby gets clipped by that block as it was heading out. So another CUC point, but Troy, this brings up a point. CUC scored 3 straight coming out of the timeout. It seems to me, from what I've seen this year, that Coach Manos is very effective in his timeouts, and the team usually comes out of them able to get a few points. Of course, as I say that, Eli Mosher serves up an error, but still, he calls the timeout. They get 3 points back. Coach Manos seems to really know what he's doing when he calls that timeout.
Yeah, we talked about Saturday as well. I think he's got magical motivational powers in the huddle. He sprinkles some nice little dust around the team, and they come out playing well. No, but, a lot of times that can just be, calming down, or maybe it's a specific point of emphasis where, all right, hey, we weren't doing that in these last couple sequences, so let's try that now, and sometimes that makes all the difference.
Yeah, I think the other thing you notice about Coach Manos is how composed he is as a coach. I mean, I'm not saying one school of thought is better than the other, but, you'll see coaches who get very, very fired up while they're coaching. Manos is very baseline, very composed, at least to the viewer. And like you said, Troy, I think that calming effect is a big part of why CUC usually plays better coming out of timeouts.
Yeah, and that's just the kind of guy he is. It's the guy he is on campus as well, as you see him, walking around and chatting with him in the cafeteria or during the coaches' weeklies or, all over campus. He's just that calming presence of, he's just a good guy to be around.
Our players seem to enjoy what he's been able to do, and the stats speak for themselves. As I mentioned, he's 1 win away from becoming the all-time leader in volleyball wins, as a absolute missile from J.R. Stella ends up in the stands. And because of it, CUC, they've been playing well out of that timeout. They've outscored Benedictine 5-2 as they've made it a 5-point game. They are running out of runway, though. Benny just 4 points away from claiming set 1. Leon Gazovsky, his serve lands in the arms of Cardenas. as Vales keeps it in play. Mosher's got to send over a freebie to avoid four-touch. Oh, a slam dunk there from Owen O'Toole. That gets the crowd and the bench fired up. As Benny gets 1 point closer to pulling away from this one, 22-16. Spencer Veningen. Serve is up and way over the out-of-bounds line as well. So CUC gets a point back to a 5-point game. Stella, the freshman out of Des Plaines, Illinois, as he responds with a service error. So Benny 2 away now from set point, as Armstrong, senior, all the way from Ventura, California. Serve is up and over, just barely clears the net as that ball goes out of bounds off the dig, and CUC backs against the wall now in set one, 24-17, as Armstrong back to serve for set point. Armstrong's serve is over and out, so CUC not dead yet. You're going to need a 6-0 run here to tie it up. Be quite an impressive feat against a Benny team who's looked pretty good so far in this first set. Ball is up as here comes Dobie Gato right there. Armstrong for Stella, that off the blocker's hands. And a big hit there, touches court, and that'll do it for set one. So Benedictine, they claim victory here in set one, 25-18, as we have a tornado warning outside CUC. We got the alert on our phone, so we're gonna have to wait a minute to see what's gonna happen here before we're supposed to get a sideline report from Jonathan Shear. That's what I would rather do, as Jim Egan speaks over the PA. Well, tornado warning was not on my bingo card for tonight's broadcast, but there we are. So everyone being asked to evacuate to the lower floors of the building, so we're going to do that as well. We'll keep you updated as soon as we find out anything when we get an all clear. But until then, Benny, they take set one 25-18. They lead 1-0 in the match. We're going to go downstairs and hang out for a little bit while this tornado passes, and when we come back, hopefully we get ready to resume set two. But again, you can keep up on all CU Chicago social medias for updates. We'll see you in just a bit on the Cougar Sports Network. Well, we're back from the tornado warning. Luckily, everybody is safe. Geisman Gymnasium is still standing as we get ready to resume play here. But before any of that, we're going to send it down to our sideline reporter, Jonathan Shear. Jonathan, hopefully you have some good stuff for us that you gathered in that brief intermission period. Jonathan, what do you have for us?
What's up, Cougar Nation? I'm Jonathan Shear down here on the sideline as both Benedictine and Concordia Chicago get warmed back up after the tornado warning lockdown has been lifted. It was Benedictine who took that first set in dominant fashion over the Cougars. Benedictine, one of the best teams in the NAC conference over the last couple of years. And something that Peter and Troy talked about during that first set was the Benedictine University uniforms and how striking they were, the black uniforms, the red, the white, the shorts, but primarily that name right on the bottom of the backs of the uniform beneath the numbers, Staple. That is for Christian Staple, former head coach of this Eagles team back in 2021, who is arguably the most successful coach in Eagle history with men's volleyball, taking this team to their first and only national championship appearance back in 2021, and the only team from the NAC to ever make that national championship game. Christian Staple, who passed away before that 2022 season, and this team has moved on with a new leadership, some new players as they come in, but they haven't forgotten about that memory of Christian Staple, who left such a strong impact on this Benedictine program and led them to being that dominant program within the NAC. But on Concordia's end of the court tonight, they have some history with Benedictine. You talked about that as well, but it's a really interesting thing here. You have the Benedictine's head coach, formerly head coach of Concordia Chicago, except most of these Cougar players weren't here during that tenure. But they feel the impacts of that rivalry between these two teams, and you can see that tonight. Both of these teams very, very invested in this matchup. Concordia Chicago looking to pull off a home upset for the second year in a row. Benedictine looking to just get another statement out of the way on the road to what they hoped is another NAC conference championship this season. But as both teams get ready to get back underway, it's Benedictine who leads 1-0 in the sets over Concordia Chicago. The Cougars looking to get back in it in this next set. Benedictine looking to continue to put the Cougars away. Peter, back up to you and Troy.
Well, thanks, Jonathan, for your always insightful insight. As he said, a lot going on. He mentioned the staple on the jerseys, a noble cause that Benedictine is proudly wearing on their backs under their number. But it's not the only noble cause being honored tonight. It is the Dig Pink game, as we are honoring breast cancer awareness throughout the game. Between the second and third sets, a giving minute for dollar donations towards breast cancer research will be held. And throughout the night, some various facts about breast cancer is being read out by our public address announcer, Jim Egan. As you could see, numerous pink shirts on both sides of the court, over on our staff, on the fans, and right up here in the booth, Troy wearing a very stylish pink shirt, I must say, looking pretty sharp, supporting the Dig Pink game.
Appreciate it. Had to bring it from the wardrobe back in Michigan. I got try to do every color in the wardrobe. I've got some purple and some green. Just you never know what you're going to get at these theme nights here, sometimes for basketball, volleyball, so I think it's just best to be prepared for all the situations.
Say nothing better than being prepared as these two teams prepare to get underway here. So what happened, maybe should have addressed this up top, is that after we came back from the tornado, they got 10 minutes on the clock. Benny had 5 minutes to do their hitting warm-ups, and now we're in the back half of the 10 minutes. 4:32 reads out on the scoreboard, where CUC has the full court to themselves to warm up, and then we'll get back to action with set number 2. But Troy, let's give a reminder for everyone listening at home, because set 1 happened quite a bit ago now. 25-18 win for Benedictine, As we look at some of the leaders on the day, the kill leaders, there's a tie between one player from each team. Cooper Armstrong has 4 for the Eagles, while J.R. Stella has 4 for the Cougars. In terms of digs, we have another two-way tie, this time between 2 Cougars, David Vales and Van Gato. They both have 3. The assist leader is Spencer Vanagan. He has 11. Eli Mosher has 7 for the Cougars. Chase Olson, he's the block leader with 3, while Armstrong leads points as well. Some of the team stats to look at. Additionally, the hitting percentage, Cougars, they're hitting at 0%. That means they've made just as many mistakes as good plays, while Benny, they're hitting at 384. And addition to that, Cougars have 3 service aces to Benny's 2, 10 digs to Benny's 6, but the big number that Troy kept referencing throughout that first set, 9 attack errors to Benedictine's 2. Troy, the Cougars, they're playing a good team here in Benny. They are the reigning NAC champions, and when you're playing a good team, you know, I think this goes for all sport, whether it's volleyball, whether it's football, basketball, whatever it may be, you cannot make that many mistakes against a good team because good teams are going to capitalize on that.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what these good matchups come down to. It's mistakes and consistency, and I want to point something out here, Peter. In terms of the hitting percentage, which you just touched on, Benedictine sits at 385 right now, and just to give you an idea of how impressive that 385 number, right now in the NAC, the leader in hitting percentage is Dominican at 249. And Benedictine's season average right now is 213. So they're hitting 385 here after that first set, and their average for the season is 213. So well above their season average. We'll see if that stays true throughout the duration of tonight, or if that kind of settles down and they get close to their 213 mark. And if they do get close to that 213 mark, Peter, we'll maybe see if Concordia can take an advantage there, and that's something that allows the Cougars to climb back into this game.
Right, and of course the Cougars, I mean, you're mentioning the hitting percentages on the season. CUC, they're currently sitting at 0, but on the season, they're usually hitting at a 175 mark. That's good for 7th in the NAC. So this is a Cougars team who is underperforming right now. This is a Benny team who is overperforming right now, at least if you're looking at the season averages. And the other thing I'm interested to see, Troy, is what exactly would that tornado intermission, whatever you want to call it, what is that going to have an effect on this game? I mean, you know, there are various stories from the sports world. I think Chicago fans are probably most familiar with the Chicago Cubs in 2016, a rain delay going into the extra innings of Game 7 of the World Series. That's what a lot of those players attribute to kind of getting their stuff together. Obviously, we're not playing Game 7 of the World Series here, but it just kind of goes to show that sometimes for a team that's down, having a break can actually kind of help turn momentum around.
Yeah, and it's similar to a timeout in that sense where you were just trying to refocus and calm your nerves a little bit. And so sometimes that break can help. You know, you get to reflect on what did we do, what didn't we do, what areas can we improve upon. And so we'll see if that's something that, you know, both teams have things to improve upon. And even though Benedictine won that first set, you know, they still had 4 service errors to the Cougars 2. And so that's just one category right there that if you're the Eagles, you're saying, all right, you know, 4 is too many. We can't give away 4 points. So, you know, that's an area we have to focus on. And so it works for both teams, and sometimes it can be a blessing and sometimes it can be a curse.
And I think the other thing to look back on set 1 is this was a Cougars team who looked vastly better at the end of the set than the first. I mean, I believe it was 19-11. Coach Manos used what was his second timeout. And then after that, it was a 7-6 ball game in favor of the Cougars. So this was a CUC team who was starting to piece it together. I mean, they were hitting way in the negatives for a lot of that set, and they finally kind of got it together at the end. Of course, the hole was too deep at that point for a comeback, but you kind of hope that was a sign of things to come, and hopefully that tornado intermission didn't kill any of that momentum CUC might have found at the end of the first set. So the second warm-up period of the night is ended. The teams start to make their way back out to the court and prepare for some set 2 action. Benny, they want set 1 25-18. They take a 1-0 lead. Look for that commanding 2-0 lead over the Cougars in the match, while the Cougars trying to avoid a 2-0 hole. And not that they play poorly when they're down 2-0, as we've seen throughout this season. as looks like for the Cougars, Gazovsky, Vales, Mosher, Deontay Garcia, Stella, and Gato are out on the court, while for Benny, it is Armstrong, number 1, Jordan Cardenas, number 17, Owen O'Toole, 25, Anthony Doobie, 23, Brennan Almireles, and number 3, Spencer Vanagan. Those are the starters for the second set of action as Armstrong's serve is received by Garcia. Stella, a hard shot off the chest of Armstrong. He wears it, and now a poor block by CUC goes out of bounds. Adobe gets the first point of this second set. Armstrong back to serve once again. Benny on top. They took the lead first in set 1, if I remember correctly, as a floater by Vales. Good play there by Cardenas to keep it alive. Soft hit, Garcia there. Here comes Mosher. Mosher to Stella. Good hit there. Jackson Stella set up perfectly by Mosher. Finds no man's land, and we're all evened up at 1.
It was a good selection there by Eli Mosher. It appeared as if he was going to come down to the south side of the screen towards us up here in the booth, and instead went north to the 10-foot line for Stella, who was able to put down that kill.
And putting down a kill for Benny is number 17, Owen O'Toole. So Benny up 2-1 now. See plenty of alumni out in the stands for CUC, as again a high emotion game. Some of the last year's seniors are in the stands watching a rematch of the game that ended their Cougar career, as now we're tied up at 2. David Vales gets set to serve, the lone senior on this Cougar squad. As Vales' serve is a high one. Armstrong gets under it. Benningen back to the Cougar side. Mosher, he's going to go for Stella. Stella, a little poke, gets through the blocker's hands. And that's just a high IQ play there by Stella. Stella's been pounding the rock all night long. So I like the play there, Troy, to take a little gas off of it. Just send a little floater. The defense didn't look like they were ready for it.
And let's look how far back it is right there that Vales serves that from it. Almost the baseline of the basketball court when he goes to jump on that serve. So it's not something I remember seeing in the past, but maybe that's an adjustment.
No, Vales usually serves very far behind. I mean, I think if you watch him when we flip sides again, because we're guaranteed to do that one more time, if you watch him when he's serving on the left side of the viewer's screens, there's a nice one-handed flip there by Gazovsky, ties us up. Gives the Cougars the lead. I mean, he's usually behind the bleachers over there, so I think the wall on the right side of your screen actually kind of limits how far Vales likes to rev up, but that is a trademark of number 7 in white, is how far he likes to go back to serve. As Gazovsky, a soft serve, going down to the ground was Cardenas, and now finishing off the kill, Adobe. And we are all tied up at 4.
It was a very nice swing there by Adobe, and he got the Eagle bench once again involved in tonight's matchup.
As number 5 now, Barbo, his serve gets right to the Libero for CUC. Gato, Stella, hard hit there, and Benny able to keep it alive as now Armstrong tries his hand. Good defense there at the front and the back line for CUC. Armstrong will get another whack at it, and this time he'll connect with the ground. Cooper Armstrong, the senior for Benedictine so far this year, coming in with 70 kills. That trails just one player, Chase Olson, in total kills. We haven't called Olson's name a lot tonight, as now a block goes out of bounds off of Armstrong and Olson's hands.
Yeah, Olson was a player that we highlighted at the beginning of this one. Had a very nice night on Saturday against St. Norbert, and is, in terms of conference statistics, the leader for the Benedictine conference-wide. But tonight it's been number 17, O'Toole. It's been a very good performance from him so far tonight, as we'll get Olson back here to serve.
Olson, a graduate student out of Woodridge, Illinois. As this serve is up and over, Vales goes down to a knee to grab it, and Stella sends it into the net, so point Benedictine. As O'Toole gets set for another serve. 6'6" middle hitter for Benedictine. Serve is up, and a rocket lands right at the feet of J.R. Stella, as you cannot get a better place serve than that. Stella, who is 6'5" himself, really had no shot at getting down for that one.
Yeah, that's tough. It came screaming in there, and to try to adjust on the fly like that, that's difficult. And we'll see the flip side of what it takes to hit a ball that hard, and sometimes you just lose control and it goes sailing out of bounds.
That one way out as Deontay Garcia checks in now. Garcia will serve wearing number 1, a sophomore from Aurora, Colorado. Not to be mistaken with Aurora, Illinois, home of another good NAC school in Aurora University. As here comes Armstrong, good hit off the blocker's hands and out.
And Peter, that was something I noticed here just looking over the rosters briefly. Concordia has only 3 players outside of the state of Illinois, but you look at Benedictine's roster and they're really nationwide. You've got players from Colorado, Wisconsin, Arizona, California, Massachusetts, Nevada, Texas, Arizona, and Virginia. So while they do have plenty of players from Illinois, you also see that nationwide approach to recruiting here by the Eagles.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see as this team gets older, as a good block by Benny keeps things going. As this team gets older in the Ron Katarzyński era, how is that going to translate? Because, I mean, this is the first recruiting class that Katarzyński has. As ball is up, and a flip there gets blocked by CUC, and the ball hits the ground. Gazovsky in on the play. As Ayanaze Reef back to serve now for CUC, another freshman who's had good success in his college debut season. Morales blocked up front, stone wall, Eli Mosher, Leon Gazovsky, and we are all knotted up at 9 now here in set number 2.
Back-to-back blocks are a good way to steal some momentum back for the Cougars. You get some music playing here in Geisman, bring the crowd back to life, and we are all tied at 9 here in the second set. We'll see if the Cougars can go on a little run. It's 3-0 scoring run right now for Concordia.
And they get another one. It is a block party here in Concordia. Gazovsky and Vales combining for it, as Benedictine having a hard time climbing over that wall. 3 blocks in a row, 3 emphatic blocks in a row at that, as Benedictine now finds themselves in a 10-9 hole. Another block up front. Benny's able to play this one, however. Morales, that isn't able to be blocked as it touches the back of the in-play court, and we are tied up again at 10 now.
Peter, if you look out the doors there in the back of Geisman, you can clearly see some strong lightning.
It is a light show outside right now.
Brightening up that back lobby there pretty clearly. So it's still very much coming down here. The storms are heavy in River Forest. We do still have the all clear as we stand right now, but storms are very much still in the area.
They were supposed to get some inclement weather tonight, as tomorrow it's going to really cool off after what was a 72-degree day. And a good dig by Gato, able to get up there. Stella off the blocker's hands. Armstrong in the back row, able to get there. Doby, good play there by Gato again. Mosher hits it back over his head as Garcia sends over a freebie. Armstrong a little poke and gets it over the front line. Nobody from the back line got up to it. And because of it, Benny's all tied up at 11. But again, tomorrow is supposed to be a very cool day compared to what was a pretty warm day outside. As we've had all kinds of crazy weather this in February. It was 72 degrees in February in Chicago. That is pretty ridiculous.
So, Peter, I'm curious, as a spring sport athlete, and I'm a fall sport athlete myself, so our season goes kind of from warm and then gets colder as the season goes on. But, you guys on Saturday at your game, I mean, it was cold.
It was around
like
32,
30 degrees. Yeah. So, is that something as a spring sport athlete, you like playing in those colder games, or you not really think about it, or how does that work in the spring?
Well, I think the thing is, as Benny's hit goes just inside of the out-of-bounds line, they tie it up at 12 again. It's been weird this year, obviously, because we're used to playing in cold weather. I mean, we played in games last year with freezing rain when it was in the 30s, and, I mean, as I'm sure is the same with football, and a spike there from Adobe gives Benny the lead back. And I'm sure with football, you don't really notice kind of after a certain while, after you've been running around a lot, you work up a sweat. Cold weather doesn't really play a huge factor in high motor sports. But I think the warm weather is even more of an adjustment just because, lacrosse players, which is the team I'm speaking from, we're not used to running around in 72-degree weather in February. So that's more of an adjustment than a cold day. So that's kind of my 2 cents on the whole thing, as a big block there goes out of bounds. CUC able to tie it up at 13. Personally, I don't care either way. I play goalie. I do a lot of standing around for the most part. So cold, warm, I'm pretty much neutral all the way through.
Fair enough.
Well, men's volleyball, they don't have to have that problem, though I will say Geisman Gymnasium can get pretty humid at points. It's a pretty warm one inside of Geisman today due to the outside weather, as Doby goes for a big kill, just tags it inside the line. But you can see on the right side of your screen, when we pan over there, a big yellow fan is blowing to try and keep these players cool, as with the incoming storms. It is pretty warm in here today. Meanwhile, back to serve is Max Barbo. And a bad reception by Hoffman. He knows it immediately as he gets coached up by Coach Manos right after the errant reception. Benny, a double point lead here. Barbo, that serve just over the net. Mosher flips it back. Here's Stella, good dig there. And it stays in play. Good job there by Van Egan to come on the other side of the court, and now an errant reception on Stella almost ended the volley. David Vale's able to play savior. Here comes Armstrong. Too much mustard on that one as it sends it out of bounds. Benny wanting to say a Cougar tipped it. They were not going to get that argument, as it is now 14 serving 15. Stella back to do so.
It appears as if the line judge down here in the bottom right-hand corner signaled that initial sequence, the ball had gone outside of the stick, but then we played on and ended up in a Cougar point anyway.
Block goes out of bounds for another CUC point, 15-15. Our officials for the night, Nick Altier is the ladder judge, while Mallory Roberts is the referee on the score side of the court. Meanwhile, Steven Morioka and Russ Vondra are your 2 line judges for the night. As Armstrong, does it stay in? It does. Point Benedictine, as they're able to end a mini Cougar run. They take a 16-15 lead now with number 16, Olsen. As now we're going to get a pause here. Coach Manos having a chat with Mallory Roberts near the scorer's table. I think he's wanting to get some clarification on a couple of the hits.
And they're chatting with Mosier, and she pointed to the shoulder and turned as if to say that last ball had went off of his shoulder, maybe. Not quite exactly sure what that conversation was about. I tried to do my best lip reading, but
it's always fun to try and rip/body read up here in the booth. As this one is out of bounds, so we're tied up again at 16. Play some charades from across the gym. And Garcia, he'll check back in to serve for CUC. Garcia, usually when he's not wearing the libero uniform, usually comes in to serve, maybe play a few defensive sets. Never see him in the front row, though, due to his size. As a good hit there by Armstrong gives Benny a lead again. A back-and-forth affair here in set 2. Kind of a different picture than what we saw in set 1, which was a game of runs, mostly for Benny. As Van Ingen service played by the Cougars. Here comes Stella. Good dive there by Barbo. As Mosher goes for Vales. Vales a floater. It hits the pin, and Benny will get a point because of it. So Van Ingen will get set to serve once more. Serve is up, and way too much sauce on that. Ball sails out, so Cougars back within 1. As Ayaz Arif, his serve is up and over. Popped up by the libero Cardenas. As Armstrong, good stop there by Stella. Vale sends one over, no touch by Benny, so point in favor of the Eagles. They take a 2-point lead now. They sub out Barbo for Anthony Doby.
And that was just a few moments ago the Eagles' 9th service error, the 5th of the set already. And so, again, that was something we talked about pre-game, and then also after the first set, if that was going to be an adjustment from the Eagles to clean up those 4 in the first set. But they've turned around and come back with 5 of those service errors here in the second set for a total of 9 so far tonight. So, that's a point of emphasis here, certainly. I mean, they've taken a 3-point lead here in set 2 and already won set 1. But, I would say if there's something the Eagles can clean up here, that still looms large.
And I think the good thing for the Eagles is despite that vast difference in service errors, they have 9. The Cougars just have 2. The Eagles do have more service aces, and they're still hitting almost 300 points better than CUC right now. Benny, they're at 345, CUC at 083. And I think that if you're Coach Manos, that's kind of what you got to tell your team is like, hey, the Eagles are giving us opportunities. They're having a poor day in terms of keeping the serves in play. Like, let's start taking advantage of that. Let's stop committing so many attack errors. CUC has 13. Benny just has 6. Like, as good as the Eagles are, we got our opportunities. Let's make the most of them.
Yeah, one thing we haven't seen tonight that we do see quite often from the sophomore setter, Mosier, is a dump. We haven't seen him try and dump or tip towards the middle of the court. So let's see over these next few moments here in set 2 or early into set 3 if that's something that he pulls out of his bag to kind of help that percentage.
Mosher does have 14 assists on the day. Trails only Van Ingen in that number as Benny gets a point off the tip. Out of the timeout, they take a 21-17 lead now. As Armstrong.
And that really is just a serve-receive error on the fact of the Cougars can't control the serve that comes to them and ends up over on the other side of the net for an easy kill.
So Armstrong served. It ended up being a service error, but they're letting him do a redo. I think there's a pause on the Cougar side of the net. They wanted to get a sweat rag in to wipe the floor off, and Armstrong makes the most of his mulligan, hits the service ace. So CUC with a bad break there from service error to service ace for Armstrong as he gets set for another 22-17 is the score here as we at the late stages of set number 2. And a low serve. Vales gets a piece, and then Stella gets a piece. hits the back of the end play court. And CUC able to end a 4-0 scoring run Benny was on as Mosher gets back to serve now.
It was a really good placement there by Mosher on that dive. Just kind of got it right up there where Stella could take a good swing at it.
And a soft serve from Mosher, a high arcing one. And a good hit off the blocker's hands, this time from Owen O'Toole. As Benny 2 away now from claiming set 2. As back to serve is Owen O'Toole. O'Toole gives the ball a good couple dribbles before his serve is sent over. Garcia under it. Mosher, he's going to go for Stella. Stella can't land it in play. No touch by the Eagles. And we've hit set point now for Benedictine as they look to take a commanding 2-0 set in this match. O'Toole back to serve once more to see if he could finish this one off. O'Toole's serve is up and hits the net. So CUC not done just yet. 24-19 as Vales back to serve. No room for error for Vales and the rest of his Cougar teammates. Serve by Vales is good. And that'll do it. A hard hit from Van Ingen. Van Gato cannot do much about it as it goes off his hands and out of bounds. And like that, Benny takes set number 2, 25-19. They are going to take a 2-0 lead into the third set as hopefully we won't have a tornado warning go off. But we will have Jonathan Shear ready to give us a sideline report, and he will be joined by an assistant coach for the Cougars, Danny Coates, as we wait for the go-ahead from Jonathan. So Benny takes set number 2, 25-19. We're also having our giving minute, so all the fans here in Geisman encouraged to give $1 for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. But Jonathan gave me the thumbs up, so we're going to send it down courtside. Jonathan, joined by assistant coach of the Cougars, Danny Coates. Jonathan, what do you have for us?
What's up, Cougar Nation? I'm Jonathan Shear down here courtside with assistant coach for the Concordia University Chicago Cougars, Danny Coates. And Coach Coates, down 2-0 as we come into this set. You were down 1 after that first set, and then we had that tornado warning break. How did you guys approach coming out of a long break like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the focus with us between sets 1 and 2 was just stay warm, stay stretched, stay focused, which we did well with. I think we came out real fast, real hard. We stayed within 1 basically throughout the entire set. Wheels just fell off a little bit at the end there. So just staying warm throughout.
Yeah, absolutely. And in that second set, like you mentioned, you managed to stay warm. And for the majority of that set, it looked a lot better than that first set did. Did end up being a 6-point loss, but, you know, it looked better. There were a lot of positives from that one. Are there any adjustments that you kind of made during that set and any adjustments you're looking to make moving forwards?
Yeah, absolutely. Just trying to get the ball to the right side of the court. Our man JR has been swinging phenomenally out of the right, so we want to keep getting him the ball. Beyond that, just, keeping all our guys involved. Limiting the errors.
Absolutely. So, do or die set right now. You're down 2-0. How do you guys approach working with the team mentally here when they really have to win this set to stay alive?
I mean, we got to stay the course essentially. I mean, we can't get too skittish. We can't get too weaselly. We got to make sure we're just playing solid throughout. So, as long as our guys just keep a good head on their shoulders, I think we'll be all right. Weather the storm sort of deal.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Coach. And Peter, Troy, back up to you guys as the Cougars look to get back into this matchup.
Well, thanks to Jonathan Shear, our intrepid sideline reporter, and thanks to assistant coach Danny Coates for joining in on that one. And Troy, kind of feels like deja vu here for CUC. Down 2-0 in a match once again. 3 reverse sweeps so far for the Cougars. So I've got to imagine if I'm Coach Manos, obviously adjustments need to be made. You are down 2-0 in the match, but I'm sure there is not as much panic going on as maybe another team just because of CUC's history so far this season in when they are down 0-2.
Yeah, I think when you've been there before and you've gone through it and you've come out on the other side with 3 of those reverse sweeps, you know that you can do it. And now it's just going out and doing it, right? So just because you've done it 3 times doesn't mean you're going to do it a 4th time, doesn't mean you're going to do it tonight, because each night's different and each opponent's different, and sometimes the night's just not your night, and that happens sometimes. And sometimes it's just a really good night for Benedictine, and, they're still swinging at 377, which is, 150 points above their season average. And so, sometimes it's not a bad thing to just say, you know what, the opponent, they outplayed us tonight, and that happens sometimes in sports. And so I think the mentality with the reverse sweep is just, we've been there before. We just got to go out and do it. We've got to play better than what we did in the first 2 sets, and we got to hope that we put a little bit more pressure on them and they don't play as well as they did those first 2 sets.
As we get underway here in set 3, Benny trying to end this one quick, and they'll score the first point for a 3rd straight set. And I think the other psychological thing about the 2-0 lead for Benny is, like, now the pressure is kind of on them. I mean, CUC, obviously you don't want to lose the game, but at this point it's kind of like, we're down 2-0. We're not supposed to win this game. While Benny, you're up 2-0. You are supposed to win that game. As a bad reception there from Cardenas gives us a 1-1 game. So, yes, they're up 2-0, but you got to think a lot of that pressure is on Benny to close this game out, especially if they've done their homework and know that CUC is a team who likes to come back from 0-2 deficits.
Yeah, and I think the flip side of that is sometimes you can get teams that get complacent where they're up 2-0 and they start to lose focus, or they think they got this one in the bag, and that's when opposing teams can start to crawl back a little bit. So it can work both ways, and so we'll see. And definitely the Eagles know that the Cougars are come from behind team. That's definitely something they've talked about and that they are aware of.
I think this set as Hoffman, his attack goes out of bounds, point CUC. I think this set's going to be a big one. If Benny does not win this, I'm not trying to make my prediction here. If Benny doesn't win this, CUC does, then the pressure really is on Benny. Hey, we had a 2-0 set. The other team got one back. Now they're just 1 set behind. Whereas if they take care of business in 3 sets, come away with the sweep. So this is a big set for both of these squads. CUC trying to stay alive in the match, while Benny, they're just trying to win it. That'll help as they retake a 3-2 lead. And another development to look at is we got a men's basketball player on the court for CUC, Sean Beckman, making his Cougar debut on the men's volleyball team just a week after he was on the court for men's basketball.
Yeah, and just a really impressive athlete. He stands at 6'8". He joined Concordia via transfer just a few months ago, and so now a full basketball season and started many games for the Cougars, played a ton of minutes, and now here in volleyball season. So super excited to see what he can bring to this team now here in a do-or-die situation.
Beckman, a transfer to men's basketball out of Harper College. Not too far away from CUC in the grand scheme of things, as a rocket there. Good dig by Van Gato to keep it up. And Hoffman, his attack takes a weird bounce off the hands of a couple Eagles, hits the ground, and because of it, CUC back within 1, 4-3, as J.R. Stella back to serve. CUC do or die in this set, down 2-0 in the match. Serve from Stella, diving dig there by Cardenas, as Armstrong, his attempt is hit, and Sean Beckman almost got his first kill, and instead Benny kept it alive just for a moment longer. Good blocking on the other end by Hoffman and Beckman, as it is 4-4, and I think you nailed it, Troy. I said it earlier. Obviously Beckman's new to the game of volleyball. He hasn't played before, but you can't teach 6'8", and in a game like volleyball where height really does mean a lot, especially middle blocking, that's just a big add for the Cougars, experience notwithstanding.
Yeah, and it is just one of those things that you're right, you can't teach it. And so anytime you have an opportunity to add that type of presence to your squad, most of the time that's an easy answer, right? And you just say, yeah, well, we can work with it and we'll see what happens. And
CUC gets a point out of it, 5-5. And the other last thing we'll say about Beckman is, Coach Manos knows he's an athlete. He came to the CUC, made an immediate impact as one of the main, rotation players for the Cougars. Started some games for men's basketball, came off the bench for some games as well. So he's got the athleticism, he's got the height. You can teach some of that other skill stuff as Coach Manos throws him in for a different look in set number 3. And Jackson Stella off the block attempt from Armstrong, and the Cougars take a 6-5 lead now. Austin Hoffman ready to serve as Aurora starts getting their gears up a little. Benedictine starts getting some of their gears up. Cougars back in control. Here comes Stella. Cardenas gets in front of it. Armstrong sends one to over. Good play there by Gato. Vales put right back in his face as he'll get another attempt. A floater. Almorales sends it right to his head coach and assistant coach. Right in between Coach Katarzinski and Tori Vandeler.
Cougars now on a 3-0 run here behind the service of Marcin Hoffman. Another player having a fantastic freshman campaign. He earned himself a NAC Offensive Player of the Week earlier this season.
Very first week of play, Hoffman, the opening Player of the Week. As Beckman almost got his first kill, and the Cougars won't need a kill at all. The ball goes out of bounds as CUC now takes an 8-5 lead. 3-0 scoring run turns into a 4-0 scoring run as Hoffman back to serve once more. Serve is up and right into the arms of Cardenas. Here comes Armstrong. Armstrong ends the run, finds the back of the court. Lead shrunk down to 2 for CUC. Armstrong set. Served by Armstrong just over the net. Here comes Vales. Vales into the blocker's hands and down. A little too far back was Owen O'Toole and Brennan Almorales. As this will be interesting. Sean Beckman back to serve. First time we've seen number 19 at the service line. Serve is good. Looks pretty good doing it. As this attempt popped up by Hoffman. They go for Vales again and breaking some ankles on that hit. He gets Veningen to fall to the ground as CUC up by 4. Beckman ready for his second ever serve as a men's volleyball player.
Yeah, and you can already kind of feel the presence of Beckman in this game. He's got a dig and a block so far to his name. Services have looked good. He feels comfortable out there.
Block up front, but CUC can't get in front of it enough as it touches the ground. As Beckman subs out now. And, the other thing about Beckman is he's just, he's a question mark for the other team right now. No team has film on Sean Beckman when he's not on the basketball court. So, as good as a coach as Coach Katarzinski or anyone else might be, when you have a player that you've never seen play before, you just don't know what to expect out of him other than that he is a newbie.
Yeah, I think maybe the approach is hit up the basketball coach and say, hey, how athletic is this guy? Can I steal some of your tape or send me your huddle login so I can watch some film on where it's 33 in basketball. So number 33 for the Cougars wearing 19 here for volleyball. The other thing is you watch them in warm-ups, right? Mm-hmm. You probably know that that's the situation for the Cougars, and you keep an extra eye on them just to kind of see what the strategy might be when a player like that comes into the game.
Well, he's checked out for now as he grabs a Gatorade bottle to rehydrate, having words with Coach Dabrowski, assistant coach for the Cougars. As back to serve now is Al Morales. Al Morales, and a tough reception there by Vales, and Gato can't do much with it. As Benny now back within 2, slowly crawling back in this one.
I think Van Gato was a little confused as to whether or not he wanted to go over with it or just set it up for a teammate. Ended up kind of in between both of those and landed out of bounds.
Meanwhile, swing and a miss from Gazovsky brings Benny back within 1. Gazovsky, another youngster on this Cougars team, trying to find a groove in his first season as a Cougar. As Mosher is going to go for Stella, and Stella pings a corner. He's had no problem finding any kind of groove for CUC. He gets kill number 13 on the night, the game's leader so far. Vales, he's second on the Cougars with 6. Ball sent over, blocked up front by Hoffman. Another attempt, and this one will end up in the stands. That was Braden Rice. First time we've called the sophomore names tonight. Sophomore's name tonight, as he's getting some playing time while his team is up big. Big in the match. CUC currently leading the set, however, 12-11. Barbo popped up by Hoffman. Mosher does the same, and Stella buries it at the legs of Cardenas. Not much number 1 can do about that, as CUC back up by 2.
And this is a guy that's just gotten better as the year goes on. He had a fantastic Saturday in the Cougars' last time out over Lakeland, and a player that Coach Manos highlighted in that post game as just a really impressive player for the Cougars, and he's having a good night here as well.
Cooper Armstrong also having a good night, but not on that hit. It's out of bounds, and because of it, CUC up by 14-11, I should say, and because of that, Coach Katarzyński going to burn his first time out taken by the Eagles all night long. So while they talk things over, the Cougars talk things over, we're going to take a break here on the Cougar Sports Network. We'll be back in just a second. CUC on top of Benny, 14-11.
About Concordia Chicago, head to cuchicago.edu for information on our university. We appreciate you turning into today's game and hope to see you at CUC very soon.
Cougar fans, reminder to check out our website, cucougars.com. You can find all sorts of great information there, including stats, schedules, rosters, social medias, photos, and more on every team on campus, like CUC men's volleyball. And Troy, I don't know if I can say too much, but let's just say if you go to cucougars.com tomorrow morning, a nice surprise should be in store for everybody. We're just going to leave it at that. Not sure how much of that I can spill the beans on, but some pretty big updates coming to the website. So, again, that is cucougars.com. Meanwhile, here in the men's volleyball game, Cougars up by 3, 14-11. Benny's first time out of the night has come to a close. And first time we've seen Tiki Johnson tonight, as his serve is a good one. Good dig there by Eli Mosher. Right place, right time. Hoffman, a floater, it goes. And he gets fired up. And Troy, I think one of the biggest differences we've noticed in this set is, yes, the Cougars are playing better, but I think they're also kind of feeding off the energy of the crowd right now. And the crowd's feeding off some better play from the Cougars, as I think both of those parties are really uplifting themselves right now.
Absolutely. And there's another thing I want to mention, and I don't want to beat the dead horse or sound too redundant, but it's just too glaring to ignore, and it's the hitting percentage. And we talked about how it was so lopsided in the Eagles' favor, and they were so much above the season average. Well, in this current set, they're at .08, which is about 130 points less than their season average. And the Cougars are now at 292, which is about 100 points above their season average. And that was just not the case in the first two sets. So we're seeing these hitting percentages kind of come a little bit closer now, 291 overall and 149 overall for the Eagles and Cougars respectively. But that gap is closing, and that's a reason why we're seeing a little change in momentum here.
Well, what looked like a fantastic dig by Gato was instead ruled a violation on the Cougars, as Greg Manos having chats with the scorers table official about it. But yeah, CUC, I mean, even aside from the fan presence in this set, which has been fantastic, is just playing much better volleyball than what we saw in those first two sets. As Almorales goes for Armstrong. Armstrong buries it. David Vales going to his left, went to his right. As Benny back within two now, 16-14.
Yeah, that was just tough. He was trying to get in the right position of where he thought that ball might come, trying to get in the lane in between the blockers, and in the end, he just ended up just a little bit too far. And you never know if sometimes that's on the back row or if that's on the blockers, and those lanes are expected to be covered up. Sometimes you just don't know.
Well, speaking of blockers, a good block by Benny brings them back within one, 16-15, as CUC now burns one of their timeouts. They've seen their lead, which was, by 4 or so at one point, shrink down, as they are now see themselves on the wrong end of a 3-0 run. 16-15 is our score. Let's check around the conference, or at least what else is going on around the conference. Don't have score updates, but a lot of conference action tonight, a lot of conference games tonight. Lakeland taking on the Illinois Institute of Technology. Aurora facing off against Edgewood. Of course, Benny and Concordia Chicago right in front of you in Geisman. Concordia, Wisconsin and Marion. MSOE and Rockford and St. Norbert and Dominican. And the odd man out, Wisconsin Lutheran College. They're taking on Maranatha Baptist in the lone non-con game in the NAC tonight. So we are really in the conference portion of the season schedule for every team, as everyone starts to rev their engines for the race to the NAC tournament. Benny won it all last year. CUC made it to the semifinals before they were ended by the Eagles. Looking to get some revenge here tonight. Stella blocked up front. Hoffman, he goes for Mosher. Mosher for Stella. Good one-handed hit there by Barbo. Keeps us alive, and Gato went for it. Didn't touch it. It went out of bounds. And because of it, CUC back up by 2. Marcin Hoffman ready to serve for CUC. Six kills on the night for the freshman Hoffman, and a sliding dig there by Barbo. Almorales blocked up front, but it goes out of play. And now back within 1 is Benedictine, as Armstrong will take a crack at serving. Armstrong serve right into the net. So CUC won't even have to play it. 18-16. As Sean Beckman back to serve once again. He's been pretty clean so far. See what he can do on this time. Floater, and is it an ace? It is an ace. Sean Beckman, how about that? First collegiate volleyball game, and he gets an ace on just his third or fourth serve, if I'm counting right. See if he can do it again. This one is played by Armstrong, Veningen, and a floater popped up by Mosher, and no one gets there. Bad communication on the Cougars' part, as that looked like an easy setup for CUC to get a good attack. Instead, it turns into a Benny point, they're back within 2, 19-17.
Yeah, you saw both Hoffman and Gazowski retreat for the third hit for the swing to set up that way, and neither one of them went for the second touch, and there it is. That was it right there. And that was what I was looking for earlier by Mosier, something he does quite often, and he does it really well. So that was another a smart play there by Mosier.
Well, Troy, you can check that off your men's volleyball bingo card for the night. Like you said, maybe a little odd. We haven't seen that into the third set, and a strong hit there from number 16, Olsen, as Benny just will not go away. They've been within 2 for most of this set, if not closer. But CUC doing a decent job keeping them at bay as they go up by 3 now. Amaral is a service error.
And for those keeping track at home, that is the Eagles' 13th service error tonight. The Cougars have 3, Eagles 13.
And you would think with a team as good as Benedictine has been over recent history, that wouldn't be an issue for them. Not saying, serving is easy per se, but it's one of those things that good teams do extremely well, which is they just take care of the service line. They might not get aces a lot, but they're not serving up errors a lot either. As Gazowski finds some open court. CUC up by 4 now, and that's going to force another timeout from Coach Katarzinski, his second of the set, as he finds his team in a 4-point hole right now. CUC playing their best volleyball of the night by far, trying to stay alive in this match, down 2-0 in the match. So we'll keep it here on the Cougar Sports Network. As Troy said, the service errors lean heavily towards Benny's side, 13-3. But on the other side of that, 6 service aces for the Eagles. The Cougars, they just have 4. But, Troy, if you're looking at it, obviously the hitting percentage is a bit skewed towards the Eagles. We've been talking about that all night long. But the other main number that jumps out to you is the attack errors. CUC has 19, Benny has 11. And I think as big as that difference in the service errors is, I think that attack error might be offsetting it a little. Yes, Benny's making mistakes at the line, but CUC, they're making mistakes in terms of their attacking.
Yeah, and sometimes it's placement, sometimes it's control, and so that attack error, it can vary a little bit. It's not all, just black and white, or it's not necessarily one thing to focus on. So, oftentimes there's not an easy fix when it comes to attack errors. You really just have to look at each individual one and try and correct those as you go.
And Morales blocked up front. No soup for you, says Marcin Hoffman and Leon Gazowski. CUC's front line has been on fire in this third set as they are helping their team be just 2 points away from a set 3 victory. Vales, his serve, a very high one. Armstrong pops up. Van Ingen serves it up on a dish to Olsen as CUC finds themselves still up by 4, but Benedictine gets control of the serve.
That was one of the better swings we've seen so far tonight on either side, and definitely the best from Chase Olsen.
Hoffman to Mosher. Here comes Stella. Stella finds some blockers. The ball finds its way out of bounds. And CUC at set point, 24-19, as they get ready to serve and try and extend this game to 4 sets. Benny, they need a 5-0 run just to force some extra volleyball here in set 3. As Tiki Johnson will come in and try and close this one out. Johnson, the serve is good. Armstrong for Van Ingen. Back to Armstrong, and they do extend it. Good hit there by Armstrong. As Chase Olsen will go back to serve now. 24-20, 20 serving 24. Serve is up and off the top of the net. CUC able to recover. Stella, that is no good. As here comes Armstrong. Bad hit by Cooper Armstrong. We're going to set number 4. So CUC backs against the wall, pull off the 25-20 win in set number 3, which means we got a little bit more volleyball tonight. And I don't know if I even want to say what I think everyone is thinking right now regarding this Cougars team, but definitely on the minds of this team, the fans who've been watching all season long, and Benny, of course, they know what this Cougars team is capable of. It's got to be creeping up in their mind now. CUC, they stay alive for at least one more set. We will play 4 here in Geisman, but before we get ready for our 4th set, we are going to send it down to our sideline reporter, Jonathan Shear. Jonathan, it was an exciting 3rd set. Let's see what updates you got for us now.
What's up, Cougar Nation? I'm Jonathan Shear down here courtside, coming off of a big set win for the Cougars in set number 3. Drawing a bit closer to Benny, now down just 1 set, 2 sets to 1. Cougars stay alive, and a lot of that has to do with a lot of the things you guys were talking about is the Cougars flipping trends. Throughout those first 2 sets, Benny dominated a lot of different stat areas. Obviously kills, but they dominated hitting percentage, attack errors, stats like that. But in this last set, it was the Cougars who had the higher hitting percentage than the Eagles by almost a full 100 points. And then in attack errors, the Eagles had more errors than the Cougars once again, 2 more than CUC. Those are trends that are important to win if you want to win a set, and the Cougars did that this last set. And then you look at just the eye test for this last set. The Cougars a lot stronger on that front line compared to the Eagles, especially when you look at the Cougars' front line performance in those first 2 sets. And then part of that is going to be to the new presence we saw from CUC in that set. Sean Beckman, 6'8" on the front line, having a big impact for the Cougars, just presence-wise in that first set. But now Cougars moving on to set number 4, looking to draw even against Benny with hopes of pulling off another reverse sweep in what would be a big upset. But it's going to be Peter and Troy covering the rest of that set. Peter, back up to you.
Well, thanks for the update, Jonathan, as we have less than 30 seconds to go here before set 4. And Troy, Jonathan mentioned something that I wanted to add on to, which was the frontline play from CUC was greatly improved in that 3rd set. Both teams have 7 total blocks apiece, but I think it goes just to show, and Coach Manos has hit upon this, how important blocking is going to be for a CUC team that is a little bit on the shorter side on the whole. We saw how big an effect it can have when that blocking is on point for CUC.
Yeah, for sure, and it is such a big part of the game, and it can help out that back line so much. And that's really what's key is when you can play that complementary defense, if you will, where the back line is relying on those hands to be up, and the front line's relying on, all right, we're not covering certain lanes, so that's where the back line's responsibilities are. And when you can play to each other's strengths and know where the other one's going to be and you're executing in those areas, that's really where you see that team defense come together, and you start to see fewer balls hitting the floor on those attacks.
Well, CUC still has a little bit of a hill to climb, down 2-1 in the match. They got to win this 4th set to force a 5th set. They've done it 3 times so far this year, the reverse sweep. See if they can get one step closer here. Set 4, and the Cougars start off down once again. All 4 sets, Benedictine has struck first as Cooper Armstrong gets set to serve once again.
It is such a big part. I mean, it's not necessarily an indication of who goes on to win the set, but sometimes it can be, and momentum's really big. And so when you can steal that first point, that can go a long way sometimes.
Well, Benny, they're going to steal the first 2 points. Eli Mosher tried the surprise attack once again, and this one backfired on him as Armstrong set for another serve.
on that one, the difference was the defense wasn't shifted enough there. There wasn't as much scramble going on, and so there were Eagle front liners right at the net in front of Mosier, and so as he went up, they went up as well. And that could have been a point of emphasis as well during that last break that said, hey, keep an eye on for that, don't let that happen again.
Well, Armstrong gets a service ace, which makes it 3-0. This serve is played by the Cougars, and Stella sends it way out of bounds. Another attack error on the Cougars' part, as this is not what you want to see if you're Coach Manos. You win a fourth set to prolong the game, and now you fall in a 4-0 hole to start set 4. Gato sends it to the other side. Dobie says, how do you do? Sends it right back, and that's going to force a timeout by Coach Manos. His team in a quick 5-0 hole to start set 4, as the Eagles are looking to clinch this one in 4 sets. So we're going to take a break here on the Cougar Sports Network, and when we come back, we'll resume set 4 action between the Cougars and the Eagles.
We appreciate you tuning into today's game. To stay up to date on all things CUC men's volleyball, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CUC MVP. We'll see you on campus soon.
Last day of Max's tomorrow at 5:30. Your lifting schedule just. Ten seconds left on the timeout, but these two teams are ready to get back at it. Benny, 20 points away from clinching tonight's matchup between the Cougars. CUC, they got to win this set to force set 5. Peter Borkowski, Troy Pratley joining you on the Cougar Sports Network for what has been a fun night. Big rivalry game between the Cougars and the Eagles, a rematch of last year's semifinals in the NAC tournament. And on top of all that, a little bit of a tornado watch as well, as Gato bumps into Vales. They are not able to recover, and Benny scores 6 straight out of the gates in set number 4.
Yeah, a less than ideal start here if you're the Cougars, and that's why Coach Manos called the timeout there, but even out of the timeout, still seeing the same issues.
Dobie, a floater. Vale is able to come off the front row to tap it up, and Vales tried to just float it over the net. It hit the net as Troy CUC just kind of looks out of it right now. That attempt from Vales, he ran into Gato. They just seem out of whack, maybe taken aback a bit by how Benny's come out in this 4th set.
Yeah, I think, you win that all-important 3rd set, and then, maybe you start to feel a little bit like, all right, we can do this now, and you kind of lose focus a little bit, and, it's maybe what we've seen over the last few sequences here. It's now 8-0, and the Cougars need to stop the bleeding very quickly here to have a chance in this 4th set.
Vales, that attempt is no good. Here comes Dobie, a backline attack. Stopped in the backline by Hoffman, and Stella. Cougars cannot buy a point right now. Dobie slaps it over. Stella's there. Dobie slams it down. Make it 9-0 as the bleeding is still going on. Cougars have not found the bandages yet, as Armstrong ready to serve once again. His team up 9-0 in this 4th set, looking to clinch tonight's game.
Dobie's a really fun player to watch. He seems to be able to hit the ball really well from all sorts of angles, and you saw a couple times on that last rally there, he hit the ball from 3 different spots on the court, and none of the 3 was he really set up in any way for a full swing. But he put good hits on all 3 of those attempts, so he's making good contact from all the sorts of kind of acrobatic angles. A really fun player to watch there, 25.
So the Armstrong service error gave the ball to the Cougars for a second, and who else but Dobie got a piece of a Cougar and the line official too. 2 birds, 1 stone, as they now send O'Toole back to serve. Owen O'Toole. Sophomore on this squad, sophomore starter, as Stella blocked up front. And Benny's frontline defense has been basically impenetrable in this fourth set, pardon me. CUC, their only point coming off the Armstrong service error. 11-1. O'Toole for Mosher. For Hoffman for Mosher. Vales a floater put right back in his face. There's Olsen. Cougars just not getting anything going past that front row, as it is now 12-1.
So we're going to see another change here from the Cougars. It's Garcia in for Hoffman here. He stands in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen.
Cougars trying to get a little defense maybe. Mosher flips that 50-50 ball back to his side as Olsen, it goes out, no tip on the Cougars' part. As CUC earns a second point. But again, both their points in this fourth set have come off of errors as David Vales ready to serve.
Eagles are going to chat with the officials here tonight about a touch there, but they're not going to get it.
Meanwhile in the game, Dobie, here's Almorales, and that time Jackson Stella got a piece of it. So it is now a 13-2 ball game.
And that's tough too. You see a ball coming about head level that quickly. You kind of have to make a split-second decision. Do I try and touch it? Do I hope it sails out of bounds? And unfortunately, Stella guessed strong that last sequence, but he made up for it right there. A good swing on his part.
Even JR still able to redeem himself, but his squad still down by double digits. Here is Arif. And now Dobie, good dig there by Mosher, and now the whistles blow, and we're going to get 2 touch called on the Cougars. So self-inflicted damage brings Benedictine 10 points away from claiming tonight's game. CUC, they're down by 11 points away. Our scoreboard was wrong for a second. It is 14-3 as the serve is played by the Cougars. Beckman, not yet. He is having trouble getting his first kill. He's had many good looks. Hasn't found him yet. He pops it up for Mosher, who goes back to Stella. Stella off the top of the net, nothing. As here comes Armstrong. He pops it up. Still going. Freebie. David Vales for Mosher. Mosher goes for a Hoffman off the blocker's hands. Frontline defense. Great for Benny in this fourth set. As we have a pretty good volley going on here. Gato for a Hoffman, and the whistle blows. CUC gets the point. Violation on Benedictine.
Looks like a into the net was the call there.
JR Stella serve is a good one. Armstrong. Back to Armstrong, and too much sauce on that attack. Goes out of play as CUC back within single digits now. 14-5 is the score. Stella serves once again. Serve by Stella, played by an outstretched Armstrong. And Almorales gets it put back in his face. There's the 6'8 Beckman as well as Marcin Hoffman. As CUC, they're now on a 3-0 scoring run, trying to put something together here. Down by 8. Stella. Serve is good. Armstrong. And a little sneak attack there from Olsen goes nowhere. Hoffman, that's blocked. Mosher pops it up off the block. Good hands there by Eli Mosher. Hoffman off the top of the net. Did it touch anyone? It did not. So point CUC. Ball looked like it took a weird curve. Looked like it was in play. Ends up out of bounds. As Chase Olsen looks to extend this lead. It's a 9-point game for Benny, 15-6. Dead silence as Olsen serve is a rocket. Van Gato can't do anything about that one, as it is back to a double-digit lead for Benny. Their bench celebrates accordingly.
We've seen him pull that one out here a few times tonight, the rocket, and last time he pulled it out, the second serve went flying out of bounds, so we'll see right here.
And he doesn't get a service ace yet. He does not. Good recovery by Gato and Vales, but it's all for naught as O'Toole able to get a kill, makes it an 11-point game, and that's going to force another timeout by Coach Manos. His team falls in an 11-point hole. 17-6 is the score as we are here in the fourth set. Benny looks to close things out when we're back from timeout. Don't go anywhere. You're watching the Cougar Sports Network.
We love the support you give us on and off the court. We would love if you could help us with our athletic communication department with some donations. Hit the thank button. It's down in the lower left corner. This helps us continue to have the best live stream possible for some great Cougar men's volleyball moments. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the game.
12 seconds remain on Greg Manos' second timeout of the set. His team, the Cougars, in a big hole to the visiting Eagles, 17-6. As Chase Olsen gets set to serve once again. The Eagles on a 3-0 scoring run, as they're looking to close this one out. We're up 2-0 in the set. Cougars able to take set 3, 25-20, and since then, it has been all Eagles here in the fourth set. Olsen, serve is into the net, so CUC gets the ball back off the service error.
Yeah, that time he elected to go a little bit different style there on the serve rather than the rocket. He took a little bit off and
took too much
off.
A
little bit too much off there. Tried to catch the Cougars by surprise there. Caught the net by surprise instead.
So instead, Deontay Garcia won't hit the net or the other team. It goes out as it is now an 18-7 game. Veningen ready to serve as this team just 7 points away from closing this one out. A high serve, so back-to-back service errors, as neither team having much success in that regard. Sean Beckman now gets back to serve. Beckman's serve is played by the Eagles, and O'Toole able to get a kill on the other end. Serve was received by Xander Feudner, excuse me. First time we've seen the sophomore out of Kenosha tonight. As Armstrong serve. It's played by the Cougars. Vales blocked right back and over the head of Van Gato. A strong block. And that brings point number 20 to the Eagles, as you can hear it. Geisman, which was really rocking in that third set, has completely died out. It is crickets here in Geisman, especially after a service ace for Armstrong.
That one kind of fell in between three Cougars. It was Stella, Gato, and Garcia all in the back, and all three of them kind of signaled my bad. Unfortunately, the miscommunication there will cost the Cougars big time.
And Deontay Garcia, nice play on that. A diving dig turns into a point as it hits the back corner. As CUC gets one back here, 21-9. They're going to need a hefty comeback to get back in this one now. Here comes Mosher. Serve is good. Benningen goes to O'Toole. Good block up front by Gazovsky and Vales. And now Stella hits it into the net as CUC cannot stop kicking themselves. 22-9. Self-inflicted wounds all over the place.
Yeah, this fourth set just hasn't been what the Cougars were hoping for. So maybe they can go on a little bit of a run here and make this fourth set respectable, at least as far as the box score is concerned. That'll help right there.
Couple of receptions going the other way. Benny's just goes out of bounds, which means CUC back within 12. David Vales all the way to the back wall. As this serve is a good one. Benningen and Olsen, a nice little one-handed flip. CUC didn't look ready for it, as I think that just threw their blocking time off. They were already on their way down by the time that ball got over.
And that's exactly what it was. You jump all the way up, kind of scan the court, and determine that's what's best and give it a little tip, and that's a good heads-up play there by Olsen.
Stella's attempt goes out, no touch from Benny, and CUC down to their final point of the night. 14-0 run is what they need right now. As Almorales has served, played by Gato. Mosher. Gazovsky swing and a miss, and with a whimper, CUC ends tonight's match. An absolute throttling in this fourth set, 25-10. Benny takes it, and after signs of life by the Cougars in set number 3, they end up falling in tonight's match 3-1 as we look over some of the leaders from tonight's match. In terms of the kill leader, it ended up being Jackson Stella with 16. Good game for the freshman. Cooper Armstrong was the leader. Fort Benny with 14. In the digs category, Van Gato had 11. Right behind him was Eli Mosher with 10. And the leader for Benny was their libero, Jordan Cardenas. The assist leader, Spencer Benningen, a fantastic game with 39 assists, while Eli Mosher had 27 for the Cougs. Blocking leader Chase Olsen doing some good work with 6. Armstrong, your point leader, with 20. And Benny, your winner, with 3 sets to the Cougars 1. Troy, let's get your final thoughts on what until that fourth set was really a competitive game for CUC. They just could not overcome the Eagles in those first 2 sets, and then obviously the fourth set, I think we all saw what happened there.
Yeah, it was just kind of an up-and-down night for the Cougars. In those first couple of sets, they weren't hitting the ball particularly well. I mean, some areas of improvement, especially from Saturday, even though they won Saturday and they end up losing tonight. The service errors and service aces, a big point of emphasis that we've been talking about all night as well. And at the end, it just proved to be not enough tonight. But that third set was definitely a highlight. They played well. They hit the ball well in that set, much better than their season average, much better than the first 2 sets. And so it certainly wasn't all negative. And for the Cougars, winning that third set, it is such a valuable set. Whether or not you are split after the first 2, whether or not you're down 2-0 or up 2-0, that third set it means a lot. And so for them to continuously show that they can win that third set, that's a valuable piece to take forward going into the rest of conference play, and then hopefully for the Cougars into the conference tournament as well.
Well, the Cougars, they're back at it this upcoming Thursday, February 29th, a 7 p.m. date with Concordia University, Wisconsin at Mequon. Coverage for that game can be found at our website, cucougars.com. But I want to say thanks to everybody making tonight's production possible. Down at the scorers table, we had Wyatt McLaughlin and Dave Dimeling. Emily Balaban helping out with the stats. Sebastian Miller, our photographer tonight, up here producing. Leela Scott, Sydney Lloyd, and Lindley Southern. Abby Kulig, our camera person for the night. Jonathan Shear, our sideline reporter. Troy Prattley my color commentator for the night. But once again, CUC, they fall to Benedictine 3-1, back in action on Thursday at Concordia University, Wisconsin, 7 p.m. first serve time. Check out cucougars.com for all information on that match. But until next time, this is Peter Borkowski sign off of the Cougar Sports Network and wanting to say, as always, go Cougars.
Concordia University Chicago Cougars Athletics broadcast. We hope to see you on campus very soon. If you would like to learn more about what Concordia Chicago has to offer, go to cuchicago.edu.